A very good afternoon to you from the sports desk. The curling knockout is back for a second edition after an excellent debut season which saw Stellenbosch FC walk away with the trophy. The season's event was launched earlier in the week, and for more on it, we are joined by Kerryn Greenleaf, a curling Black Label brand director. Kerryn, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kwena. It's good to be here.
I think the first question generally would be an alcoholic brand in sports. What are you guys doing in sports?
I think it's a really good question. I think for us as a brand like Carling Black Label, we want to honor our consumers, and our consumers are deeply passionate about local football. It is their number one passion point. And I think what's most important is that where they get together to watch local football, Carling Black Label is there. They're together, they're enjoying a beer and watching local football. And I think then what's so important is that it's not that we just play in sport, but we have a unique spin on it. It's something we've been doing as a brand for 13 years that honors the voice of the champion fans. So we give them unprecedented influence and power over the game that they love. And that means that not only are we just playing in sports, but we're really addressing a tension point that they have, which is around making sure that their voice is heard.
And I mean, speaking of voices being heard, one of the other campaigns that curling has had over the years is the No Excuse campaign. Tell us about that and why you have partnered it with sports specifically.
I think it's so important for the brand to understand that there are two kind of main things that happen here. One is that we know that men who often abuse alcohol can sometimes be the same men who are involved in gender-based violence. We also know that in soccer, the role of passion and tensions mean that we know that gender-based violence increases after soccer games. And therefore, we have leaned into that as a brand. No Excuse has been a movement that we have built for the last 8 years. And we tie that very closely with soccer to make sure that we're bringing these two important parts of our brand together.
Let's now talk about the curling knockout in its second season. How was it received after the original curling Black Label Cup? Which was a very different format, which featured only 2 teams. How was it received now that you had everybody on board?
I think it was such an interesting year. So we have these 2 properties now. We have this beautiful knockout, and the role of the knockout is to involve all 16 teams in the PSL. So we have a property now in the curling knockout where all 16 teams vie for they'll battle that out for the second year. And then the winner of that knockout goes into a one-day exhibition match. And here's where it gets really exciting, is that we have a new property, which is the Carling All-Stars. It's a team that is voted for solely by the fans. So it's like fantasy football, but in real life.
Yeah.
And the 2 teams come together and they have this incredible kind of one-day exhibition match. And last year was a very, very successful year. We saw more than 3 million consumer votes come in, so that they were voting for the All-Stars, they were voting for Man of the Match, they were voting for Fakigolo Zibona, and on top of that, we also rewarded our fans, because that's what we believe as a brand. We gave away more than 2 million rand, and we were awarded both teams and players through Man of the Match and Fakigolo Zibona.
You know what I love about the All-Star? I mean, last season we saw some young players that relatively wouldn't think the fans would put them in a team like that. But also the selection that was there, from the coach to the players that were chosen, really shows, to your point of fantasy football, that these are people who are not only passionate about their football, but know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the role of the All-Stars in it was completely brand new last year. And just as a reminder, the starting lineup of that is 6 PSL players from any of the 16 teams in the PSL and 5 Diski Challenge players. And the stories that we saw of these players coming up in the ranks and getting this opportunity to shoot their shot next to their icons and their legends. And that team went on to win against Stellenbosch FC, which were the knockout champions. So I think it just shows, it gives credibility to the voice of the fans. Is not only are they passionate about football, but they're also discerning football followers. They know what they're talking about, and that formation was very, very successful against a knockout winning team.
The Curling Cup, the previous one, was more famous for a lot of innovations. You mentioned the Fakugesi, Goal. Tell us about those innovations that you have come up with for the past season that will continue through to this coming season.
So last year we made a discerning commitment to Fagogezi, and what that means loosely translated is bring the energy. So to do that we had a few innovations. The first was Fagigolo Zibona. So let me explain what Fagigolo Zibona is. Fagigolo Zibona effectively is around driving excitement and passion for early goal scoring. So it starts with 90,000 Rand at the start of the game. So that 90,000 Rand means 90 minutes. And that goes down by 1,000 Rand based on every minute in the game. So for example, which we had in the Carling Cup, if there's a goal in that third minute, there's a big pot of money that both the fan who votes for the team and if they can correctly predict which team and in which minute that first goal will be scored. But what was so exciting is that links to the team, because the team got the same amount of money as well. So they were incentivized and driven by this big pot of money. The other is that we give 100,000 Rand per match for man of the match. And what that does as well is it drives excitement and hype amongst the players. We heard last year some of them were training even harder than before because this is, Ikram Reyners of Stellenbosch, he won man of the match 4 times in a row last year. So he walked away with 400,000 Rand that he shared with his teammates.
You know the controversy around man of the match, and I love this because, there was even talks that people were just voting for their favorite players just to get the money. But I guess also it goes back to the point, Kerryn, that you're making of giving fans the voice. Because normally, we'll be watching on TV and they announce this particular person as man of the match. Like, how did they come up with it? So this time it is the fans actually that have the voice and decide, and have got no one to blame for the man of the match, right?
Absolutely. So, as a brand, we give unprecedented power and influence, and this is real influence. So it's on the fans to really, if they've got a point of view, they can vote. Like, that opportunity is there up until 5 minutes before the end of the game. And I think the fans built their credibility last year. They showed that the team they created is at the level of a knockout-winning team. And I think we've got to really recognize and reward that voice is not just, about popularity, but it's discernment. They understand this game. They know it. We speak to fans. Their knowledge is unbelievable. And so we give them that voice.
From a brand perspective, would you say then the decision to move from the one-day tournament that involved only 2 teams has worked, to spread the message across and actually to get more visibility, as it were?
So where it came from was that, as you mentioned, for 13 years it was a derby, and then I think in 2022 we included another 2 teams.
Sure, yeah.
So it went into a 4-team formation. And what we felt that was missing was a whole league of voices. The 16 teams in the PSL, and those fans are equally as passionate and engaged. And so that's where it came from. And we can see that in the votes. We got votes across South Africa. We got votes for different teams in the PSL. And I think that just speaks to the fact that this power of a champion voice being heard is now heard and felt by more champion fans because it represents all teams.
You constantly, and this has been part of the conversation with the Carling, you constantly refer to champion. Tell me about that aspect of championship, why the brand is so passionate about being champion or championship.
I think as an icon of masculinity, we have a responsibility to show what we believe a champion man is. So we talk about a champion man, we talk about a champion fan, we talk about our champion players. We really are honoring what it means to be, a positive influence in masculinity in South Africa. And so for us, we're always talking about the voice of the champion, but also it comes from the fact that we are a champion beer. We are the most award-winning beer in Africa, and so we have the credibility to talk about champion because our beer itself is a champion.
You've been talking about money for fans, money for men of the match. I guess the next big question is the prize money for the winning team, the last man standing, as it were.
So that is still in talks with the PSL and our partnership there. Okay. So that'll be announced very soon. But what fans can be aware of is that 100,000 Rand man of the match guaranteed. We've got Fagigolo Zibona, 90,000 Rand for all games that happen in the knockout. Those are ongoing, but the prize money is still under wraps at this stage.
I'm just wondering what's brewing there. Just finally, Kerryn, in terms of the tournament, we're starting this coming week?
This coming week, we start of the round of 16. The first matches are on Friday and Saturday. And Friday, Saturday and Sunday this week.